those who are required are around here. And I have no job actually here. They called me welcome and chair. There is none to be welcomed. We are all part of gift family very much. I don't think that anybody outside gift family is here. I think nobody. So you know that our job is essentially to deliberate on issues on which we are not very often very clear. So, and that is for which we are paid for. So I'm very happy that at the instance of Sri R. Mohan, Professor R. Ramkumar and Kiran, they have come up with a very interesting title, Consumption and Multiplier Effect, Evidence at the All India State Levels. In the state levels, I think I would have, except starting with a comment is always good, I would have started back to roots perhaps, because this is something on this multiplier and these kinds of things. While our youngsters are very fresh about it from your textbook, we are actually a bit dated, and we are very happy that uh, uh, R. Mohan, Ramkumar, and Kiran are digging these issues, this particular analytical foundations to see their relevance in the real world that we are living in. And I'm very happy that we have a wonderful discussion, and we could not have got a better person than Professor Parameshwaran. Parameshwaran has something very important to say, which we told we will, and it's very important. I'm saying that okay, this is a very important issue. Yeah, they have been consulting. That is not a very good thing. Okay, right. Yeah. So then, anyway, without much ado, with a lot of appreciation, particularly in the context of GST 2.0, this particular issue of how this Diwali gift is going to benefit uh, Indian consumers by way of prices, these national and subnational governments by way of tax revenue is an issue of paramount importance. And the analytical foundations of that, in fact, they are going to educate us. That's what I understand. So, with a lot of appreciation to all, I wanted to, it's not trio, it's actually these formidable people, all four. I request R. Mohan to begin. Oh, uh, am I right that Mr. Abraham Ren is there? Hello.
Yes, sir. I have joined the meeting.
What a pleasure! What a pleasure! I was told that you are hiding yourself in Bangalore, and very happy to have you. So nice. Welcome. Very a special welcome to you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Chairperson and Director of Multiplier, Professor Joseph, Kiran, Ramkumar, Parameshwaran, all my friends. See, this is an attempt which we thought we will do after we have had two bouts of tax reforms recently. One at the direct taxes level in the budget, and then at the GST level, which took place, that Budget Ka Utsav. I mean, it's actually what we are looking at is how much the tax cut or tax rationalization, as it is called officially, can prop up consumption at the major states level, whether it will be differential, whether the impact of this GST rate reduction or rationalization, will it be uniform across the states or will it have a substantial difference? We have had data limitations which perhaps would have affected our results also, but we have done some cross-checking. I think reasonably acceptable results we have come up with, but it is open to critical scrutiny and examination. I'm not going much into the context because all of you know this. 44% of the state's revenues and 28% of the union's revenues were subsumed. A new GST came in 2017. And now our hypothesis, which we are implicit reasoning, which we are examining, is whether the states will show similar consumption responses to these changes. If it differs, what could be the reason? So broad trends in tax revenue performance of the states. I think Professor Joseph and Kiran have a paper in EPW. We have a paper in Ramalingam, myself, and I think Shaijan, we have a paper in Gulati, that tax revenue performance across the states have been converging over a period of time, while the GSDP at current prices have been diverging. If you take constant prices also, almost the same trend will be seen. Why this? Some people have attributed it to tax evasion, state-specific tax evasion, etc., etc. But we wanted to look at something more structural. If it is there, whether we can find out. That is where we stumbled upon the differentials in marginal propensity to consume at subnational level in India. Now comes the data problem. You do not have a time series of consumption and disposable income data. Per capita income, of course, you have. You do not have a time series of consumption data across. NSSO has this quinquennial or often on 2017-18 itself is not there. So we have depended on the CPHS data of CMIE from 2014 to 2022. One more year if we add, we don't think much difference will be made. So two hypotheses we are making before the audience here is that low income states or low per capita income states typically show higher MPCs. This is what the theory tells us, converting more of each additional rupee of income into consumption. Conversely, higher income states tend to have lower MPC, reflecting higher savings ratios and greater ability to smooth consumption over a period of time. Here, intrastate inequality of income, debt, everything can affect. But this is the general hypothesis. Since it's a destination-based tax, how GST rate changes and MPCs are related, we'll just try to see. MPC and consumption, we'll just try to see. Now, the central question is a four-chain cost. That is, lower taxes means higher disposable income. Higher disposable income means higher consumption, larger multiplier-driven consumption, expansion in income, and GST revenue. Here we are treading into a very tricky area because if a government spending is increased by 1 rupee straight away, it has a more expansionary effect. It's by taxation, a part of it goes for saving also. So here, a taxation-driven expansion will be less in magnitude than a spending-driven expansion. This is what is the criticism against the tax-based reform when you are spending shy. That was the criticism against the last union budget from people outside the policy circles favoring the government. Now, here is what, we are not going into that debate. Here is where MPC or the marginal propensity to consume assumes importance. We are trying to empirically estimate it. We have made an attempt to briefly review the literature. So I'm not going into all those things. Some people have discounted the concept of marginal propensity to consume itself, how to estimate it, Trigwe, Havelmo, Hagen, etc. But Keynesian economic is a Keynesian concept essentially. But VKRV Rao in 1952 said in a country like India, it cannot have application from 52 to 2025. We have moved far ahead. So that's another thing. Now comes the important empirical stumbling block which we hit upon, which I think we will find a way out after the discussions, comments and all. See, permanent income and current income are the two different things. Milton Friedman is the originator of the permanent income. Permanent income, basically MPC is more related to permanent income, a stable relation, than to current income, which is open to fluctuations. So MPC out of permanent income, and I think this is a permanent income's proxy we have not built and we have not been able to do that. But there is one study of Vakil 1973, which has done that. How far it is empirically sound now, I think one has to test it. But in the Indian context, across at the subnational level, Bhattarai et al. And Kasturi et al., they have done two studies published by the American Economic Association. They have found that MPC remains positive and significant, but lower in household cross sections than in macro time series. The pandemic years, that is 2019, 2020, 21, etc. Pandemic years saw a spike in precautionary savings with even government transfers being saved. Since our time period includes the pandemic and post-pandemic period, we do admit that there could be or there is likelihood of a downward bias in the MPCs we have estimated. These data limitations I've already talked about, I don't want to hold. So we have done smoothening of this thing by taking 2-year averages, removing the outliers, etc., etc. So nevertheless, we do admit that there can be a downward bias, but we have done a cross-checking which we will come. So this I am skipping because I already said. Now, Indian states per capita income. States in India have vastly different per capita. I will come to the interesting part and then go for the conclusion straight because we will open for discussions a lot. See, average propensity to consume out of income, marginal propensity to consume out of theory tells us that MPC is normally lower than the APC. Here, if you see, our marginal propensity to consume average of 22 states gives us a figure of around 5.78, 0.58, near 0.6, near 0.6. All India average through a different NIS data, we get that. Now, if you see higher per capita income states, you call the richer states or whatever, Andhra Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Kerala, Maharashtra, Telangana, and Uttarakhand show MPCs below the all India average. To that extent, 7 states are conforming to the hypothesis that higher the income, lower the MPC. Now, lower income states, Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, and West Bengal show MPCs above the all India average. So 7 plus 7, 14 out of 22 states are conforming to the hypothesis. Now coming to there could be data issues also. Goa and Tamil Nadu have higher per capita income but have higher MPCs also. Punjab under the point of study, Punjab is high per capita income, but this per capita income was marginally below the all India average. Punjab, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jammu and Kashmir shows lower MPCs. And Karnataka's MPC, if we say, it is slightly marginally above the national average. Overall, 14 out of 22 states conform to the hypothesis, 8 of them show divergence. So there is heterogeneity in MPC. Heterogeneity in MPC means it will definitely reflect on the GST performance if we go by the causal chain of the theory. States with a lower marginal propensity to consume will have to have, now I'm coming to the third hypothesis, will have to have a lower GST growth and others will have a higher GST growth. And multiplier, consumption multiplier on the economy. This I am skipping because this we have already seen. Average MPC, this I have said. MPC, the differences highlight that states will convert in consumption varying intensity, creating differentiated growth response to tax-induced changes. Even growth, this multiplier, the Keynesian multiplier, consumption multiplier, if you talk, it is 1 by 1 minus the MPC. So that also will differ. States with a lower MPC will have a lower growth multiplier. So taxation growth will be lower for lower MPC states. Consequently, the growth, the multiplier effect will also be lower. So the response will be muted for certain states, response will be robust for certain states. So the impact is going to be differential. Now we have seen certain relationships. We are finding a negative and statistically significant correlation between MPC and state per capita income at almost 1% level. Richer state tends to have a lower MPC. 7 and 7 I have said, and other states are showing contrary behavior. Goa, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Jammu, Kashmir, Karnataka. They are showing a contrary behavior. Karnataka is marginal. Variation in MPC implies differential multiplier effects. Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh show multipliers above 4. meaning small income gains can lead to large increase in aggregate demand, and the push for the growth is higher. States like Kerala, Telangana, Maharashtra show multipliers closer to 1.4 to 2.0. The growth impact can be muted. A uniform tax rate reduction cannot produce uniform buoyancy across all states. This is one take we are presenting before you for your critical comments. This I am skipping because nothing much. Now, MPC and GST growth, coming to the straight to the point. GST is the consumption-based, destination-based tax. Now, if you see, states like Kerala and Telangana, KL and TG are at the lower end. They are below the threshold line at the lower end. Kiran, am I right? If you can correct me. At the lower end, they have lower MPC and their GST response also is muted. Maharashtra, Haryana, high production-based states with a lower MPC, but their GST growth is slightly higher. How it happens, whether the GST structure or in the GST return structure, because of the address in the destination state, the administrative issues have to be seen. Uttarakhand also is coming in the middle. Now coming to Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, etc., GST growth is higher. I have not included Northeast, but today's PRS report has said that Northeastern states have also got a high this thing. Rajasthan, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, they also confirm the higher GST growth rate. So buoyancy of GST growth is going to be lower for the very high per capita income states like AP, Kerala and Telangana. So GST rate rationalization per se does not hold much promises for these states. Other aspects will have to be looked at. I am not being pessimistic about Kerala or whatever. Don't mistake that. Now, MPC and GST, this causal chain is central to evaluating the rationale that this will be a growth push across India, but it can be a growth push. But how the higher growth push of certain states will be balanced by the lower growth push of certain states. Overall, all over India, what will happen, we have to see. But in a cooperative federal setup, each state's response matters. So the response is not uniform. That has to be factored. And I think in the policy circles, we felt that this discussion has not surfaced. That is one of the reasons why we thought we will come up with at least a crude exercise, which can be refined if time and our intellect permits. That's another story. Now, this I have already said, MPC and GST performance. Now, structural break analysis. Kiran has done the entire statistical analysis. Errors are joined, but credit is Kiran's. Structural analysis, structural breaks. We look at 3 time periods. One is 97-98, when the dream budget was presented by P. Chidambaram in the United Front government, when direct taxes rates went to, the top rate went to 30%. It has since stabilized there. It has not gone up. It came from 75%, sometime at the marginal rate of 90% plus, then came to 55% in 85. Now it is at 30%. So that was a substantial break here. Then we look at the VAT implementation from 2005-6, where the uniform rates were implemented, and third from 2017-18, the GST. So these are the 3 breakpoints which we are trying to see. What we find is in 1997-98, there is a statistically significant higher break after the dream budget or the substantial income tax rate stabilization. Not only the rate cut or rate rationalization, stability also matters. We have not examined the GST 2.0 because it has just been declared. It's not possible for us to do so. We are not making comment on that. So 1997-98, substantially an upward trend is visible at 0%. It's highly significant. At 2005 also, you do have a break, positive break at 0% level. But in 2017, when GST was introduced, we do not see a break. If at all, if we say it is at 5% level, which normally statisticians and economics researchers do not talk about, it is negative. But I am not saying that GST brought it down, because it was closely followed by the COVID pandemic. And as Bhattarai et al. Points out, the precautionary motive of savings, so consumption itself went down, economy had a downturn even before COVID in 2019-20. So other factors will have to be seen, but these are the broad results. 2 significant positive breaks and no significant break from 2017-18. But we are not saying the cause is GST. We are not examining the cause and effect. No, that's not done. So that is it. The regressions appear see that we after stationarity. Okay, that will structural breakpoint. Okay, now concluding observations, what we are trying to say is now we have done an all India MPC estimation using NAS data. That was as a check we did. Private final consumption expenditure, how it is associated significantly or not with the per capita income. What we find is that we get an MPC of 0.6 there also, which is very close to 0.58. The downward bias is visible, but little bit visible, but we are almost done a cross check because we have twisted and turned the data and morphed it. So the Cutsy demands that we should try to cross check it. So we have tried to do that. So our concluding observations is that states do respond differently to tax-induced changes in disposable income due to heterogeneity in MPC. Uniform GST cuts cannot produce uniform revenue gains across states. High MPC states, mostly lower income states, are likely to experience a strong consumption boost, leading to a greater GST buoyancy. Low MPC states, richer states will experience a muted consumption response, resulting in limited buoyancy. This implies that national level discussions on GST rationalization must explicitly consider state specific behavioral response than assume aggregate uniformity. But migration, this demographic profile, all those variables, if you consider, results may vary, but I do not think the basic thing can change, but it remains to be tested. I am not putting anything into the conclusion. These are our own. So basically, we stop here with the take that the GST rate rationalization depends much on the marginal propensity to consume, which our estimations can have problems. Nevertheless, all states are not going to get uniform results, and these do depend on other factors also. And this is the take which we are submitting before you for your critical comments and evaluation. Thank you.
I think it's yeah, I think it's a very succinct, highly pointed, most relevant questions are raised. We have invited. Yeah. You have a PowerPoint. Yes. Okay.
Oh,
So, and when I think till he makes his PowerPoints, let me make some points. I think very interesting in the sense that it actually raises the question as to how important policy decisions are taken in our country when such important policy GST rate rationalization is being made. In fact, from our own institute, we have seen based on the e-waybill data of 2018, 19 and 2020, 2 years, while at the national level, almost 11% of the total tax revenue come from the GST slab of 28, whereas in Kerala, it is as high as 33%. So when we are talking about the marginal propensity to consume, the structure of demand also in fact does matter. So these two, in fact, we have in our estimate of total loss of revenue likely to be of the order of something like 7,665. That's only we have taken the structure of demand. And it's actually what is all the more important from a dynamic perspective is the marginal propensity to consume. These are actually interrelated in essence. So I'm very happy that you raised this matter, and I think it's an area where we have to dig much more deeper within the data availability. What you have done, I think I appreciate very much, but you are the person to really say whether it makes sense, please.
So thank you very much for inviting me for discussing this paper. As Professor Joseph told, this is an important paper in the sense that a very top issue is very important. And the government is also, both central and the government is trying to stimulate the economy. I think this current GST cut is also related to that thing. And now when it comes to the paper, what I will do is that I have some serious issues with the way it implemented. So first I will break the paper, then I will give suggestions how to reconstruct it. So I start with the objective of the paper. Objective of the paper is to examine the impact of recent GST rate cut and other tax concessions on subsequent expansion in the size of the economy through multiplier effect, and its implications for whether there is a fiscal crisis after because the expansion must be sufficient to generate the lost revenue so that there won't be any fiscal crisis. So that I think that is what that is the starting point. No, but whether it is sufficient to generate the revenue. Now, the paper starts with the argument of the central government that the reduction in rates will lead to a fall in prices. This consequently is for consumption activity and GST revenue will be more buoyant. But this central government argument is more of a microeconomic nature that is relevant, and the relevant concept may be this price elasticity of demand. If your price has come down, if the elasticity of demand is greater than one, demand will expand. If there is an excess capacity, output will expand. But I think your paper taking a the current paper approaching the question within a macroeconomic framework, which I think it is appropriate because it's essentially a implicit transfer from the government to the state, to the people. So the paper hypothesis that concession in the personal income tax announced in 2025 budget and cuts in GST rate will raise the disposable income of the people and thereby their consumption, which in turn leads to higher income through multiplier effect. That is the focus the paper is. With this objective, the paper estimates the multiplier using the marginal propensity to consume estimated from CPHS data of CMI. However, there are some problems with the estimation of the multiplier based on MPC estimated from household surveys. And now first I see what are the issues and how to overcome these issues. Now, coming to in an open economy, which is true for India and states in India, our states are open to other states. So when income increases in Kerala, we buy the Tamil Nadu vegetable, all these things. So part of the money will go to Tamil Nadu. So the GSDP or Y of a state can be written as C consumption is a function of the disposable income and T is the tax. Tax is a function of the income. And then I is considered to be exogenous for the time being. If we G and X minus M, I am keeping it as a function of income. As income increases, your import will increase. Now, what you can do is that take the total derivative, then your marginal propensity to consume is dou C by dou Y. So now from here, you can compute the multiplier. I think that is your focus, not your MPC. So now the multiplier is 1 by this. If your import is 0, your tax is 0, then it is reduced to ordinary multiplier. Otherwise, if you are importing, part of the multiplier effect will go out. That is a leakage. So now consider this is the multiplier, and now this is true for all the states in India also. Now coming to the consistent with the macroeconomic framework, assume that income tax, concession, and GST tax. Now I am trying to do how can we accommodate this multiplier in our analysis. Now assume that income tax, concession, and GST tax are equivalent to an implicit transfer from the government to people. Or even if you consider it as an exogenous increase in the disposable income of the people, still that multiplier values. For example, you look at this thing, this is the equation 1. When you increase the government expenditure, in your investment, when you increase the export, the same multiplier. So it has implications. I will come to that. Here, the crucial assumption is that there is no. Now, this multiplier is valid when you consider as a implicit transfer from the government budget to the people. This is a crucial assumption is that there is no corresponding reduction in the government expenditure after tax cut. If the government is transferring 10 crores to people and reducing the expenditure, there is no, it will get offset. Then the change in income after accounting for multiplier is M multiplier into government change in the government expenditure. I think one would be able to estimate the foregone revenue due to GST tax rate, that is delta G, or estimates are already there, I don't know. Or we can state level also, or we can have different scenarios. That I think must be there. Now the issue is to estimate the multiplier which accommodate this thing. Now there are studies that estimate and multiplier for government expenditure in India. One study is by RBI. There are many studies out there. These studies estimate multipliers for revenue expenditure and capital because this, depending upon the type of expenditure, the multiplier value varies. So they usually use structural VAR models. But in this case, I think you don't need that kind of complicated models because structural VAR models is used because in the all macroeconomic variables are simultaneously determined or interrelated. So the relevant government expenditure, I think you can use is the expenditure that directly enters into the people's disposable income and thereby their consumption. It may be the expenditure on salary and other direct welfare transfer to people like a social security pension in Kerala. So this will directly get into the people's disposable income and affect consumption. And also note that salary and other welfare transfers can be considered fully exogenous because in India, as income increases, we are not increasing the salary. And income is declining, we are not reducing the salary. If the salary is determined by something exogenous forces, so maybe 10-year revision or something. So you can consider it as something exogenous. And then if that is the case, you can estimate if G is completely exogenous, then it is not influenced by the level of economic activity, then a regression of Y on G will give you the estimator of the multiplier. So another approach is take the log on both sides and then you will get the elasticity. Elasticity has a better advantage because you can use that I will discuss later. Now, and another advantage is that yes, because if you use investment, government multiplier is the same that operate through this thing. So then if you take it as Y by G, then you will get multiplier value for each year. Now the question is, paper's ultimate objective is to estimate the impact of GST rate cut on state-wise economic expansion. So if we implement the above regression each state, it would give the multiplier effect due to the implied transfer from the state budget. But why income in a state increases due to implied transfer from the central budget also. So in a state, we need to capture both. So there are two alternative approaches one can take. One approach is do the above exercise for Indian economy as a whole using the central G. And then assuming that what is the impact of central transfers on aggregate Indian economy and apportion to that to the initial share of on the basis of the initial share of the states in GDP. That is the one option. Because if there is no long time lag between the effect, you can approximate this way. If there is a long time lag, you cannot use initial time lag. Then another option is to estimate the multiplier effect of the combined central and state G, implied transfer, and use this multiplier to estimate the increase in India's GDP. Then increased GDP can be apportioned among states on the basis of their initial share in GDP. I think this approach multiplier will capture both interstate and international trade effect also. Because another thing is that if the income increasing in Kerala and we are purchasing Tamil Nadu product, Tamil Nadu's income is increasing. So we have to capture that also. This approach captured that, but there is an issue. It may be possible that consumption-oriented states gain more, may be overestimated because you are distributing on the basis of the share, not on the basis of their structure. So if consumption-oriented states lower multiplier, but they get higher. So it will get overestimated and production-oriented met underestimated. Here, consumption-oriented means that they're consuming more from other states. And there is also another issue is the dominance of the service sector. Because if some states service sector is dominating, you have to produce service in that state. So most of the services are non-tradable. So that issue is also there. So this is now coming to, this is the slide I prepared, but after that, I also got some more idea. Because the paper is very important. When you look at the recent economic trends, we look at the inflation rate reported yesterday, it's very, very low. And then look at the import growth rate is declining. This all suggests that some economy is slowing down. That is why this stimulus is announced. So now you can also look at the electricity consumption. That is give the real-time this. Then one way to motivate the paper is what can be to what extent this will stimulate the economy. And then if that stimulation is sufficient to offset the revenue loss, if that stimulation is not sufficient, then there will be a fiscal crisis because you gave money and you are not getting it back. So then you are first is, and then which states are doing well, and you are accommodating the structure of consumption, whether imported, exported, all these things, and you are also you are using that data. Only thing I don't know whether we have that information on the revenue foregone due to this tax cut. If we don't have, we may have some scenarios. We must have some scenarios. So that then you will then once you have idea, once you get the idea about the extent of growth in economy, then you will be able to, using the tax elasticity, you will be able to estimate what can be the increase in the tax. From the, I think you must be knowing better than me. Then that is the one thing. Second thing is that if you are this issue is using only multiplier way. Another thing is if you are using elasticity, that is also a macro people use. Then you don't, the important advantage is that you can add in, suppose you want to estimate it for Kerala, you just adding India and Kerala, that will be sufficient. You don't need to use the initial share for combining, because what is your elasticity is the 1% increase in, and due to what is the percentage increase due to 1% increase in the G. So that you can separate the additivity is there. That is the one way to. Yeah, just adding. Yeah, what you want to, what is the total increase in Kerala due to this tax thing? One is due to Kerala's transfer from Kerala, because 50% of the GST is, and the one is from, another is from central government. So you combine these two. If you are using elasticity, just adding is sufficient. Otherwise, you have to do this base year, share, and all these things. That is the one. Then I think you have a good paper and better to contextualize in the context of India's, how, to what extent it is stimulus, but to what extent it stimulates the economy is sufficient. I think that is maybe the way to forward. I think the paper, you are too much focused on MPC.
Yeah, I think, thank you. I think you give him a big hand. I think it's a very high rate.
What I find is this revenue foregone due to a tax rate reduction
Can we ask?
is not, one second, I'll
please,
close it.
yeah.
It's not published.
Yeah.
Revenue foregone data carries on exemptions and deductions, how much they reduce it. This we have to estimate through a different way. From published data, we don't get it. According to the
They
information.
48,000 crore and all, some numbers are.
You say ATG deduction.
Mm,
So there are exemptions and everything, but they are all a sunset thing because the new scheme is going.
You're right.
But
you're
due
right.
to a tax rate reduction, what is it? I don't think the government estimates and publishes it. We have to do
But
it.
you can have scenarios.
Yeah, can create, yeah, interesting. Interesting. Can you minimize the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
And so that we can, now may I ask first Ram Kumar and to kind
No,
of.
I think I'll respond after Mohan and others will respond. I'm happy to come in after that.
And then
I think I must thank Parmeshwaran for his comments, and I must point out that these constitute two different approaches to the problem. I mean, given in fact, there's very little overlap also across these two methods because they have different assumptions. They have different trajectories. I mean, to arrive at a multiplier through the MPC is one way, and to arrive at an MPC through the method that Parmeshwaran rightly pointed out is a very different approach. Now, the problem at the national level, I would say that most of these studies will have validity at the national level. There is no doubt. What he said is that will be absolutely correct if we are looking at certain issues at the national level. But the problem with the state level studies is that there is very little information or data that we have to take care of some of the problems. And that's where both our framework and Parmeshwaran's framework will run into problems. We have no claim that our study offers a better multiplier in any form. But at the same time, most of the studies on MPC and multipliers in India have pointed out that this a much better way to look at it, a much better way in which to study state level fiscal multipliers, given that there are local multipliers and there are spillover effects, etc., not just across states but also internationally. And these are influenced by too many things: state fiscal structure, spillovers, openness, trade, interstate spillovers, etc. So most the point that many studies have made, it's much better to look at some of these survey data that we have to arrive at a better understanding, which is why we did the exercise that we did. That exercise will not be possible with that database, with the method that Parmeshwaran suggested. And I think, thank you for the comments. They're very useful. They're most appropriate also. But I think we have to appreciate that these are two different methods, and there is given that Parmeshwaran also ultimately uses a share of the state's GDP in the national GDP to arrive at the state level number. A number of issues will come up there also if we do that, because interstate spillovers will get completely disregarded in such a process. So Mohan will, I'm sure, contribute better and more, and also Kiran. But I'll just make this point at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Ramkumar. I think that is the reality. Anyway, I'm going to, I think you would like to supplement. I think
Parameshwaran has done an extremely
Yeah.
strenuous job and contributed much to us. We will definitely try to do how much is possible from his comments, and I think we'll do that. But I have a small take to state here that states, we have not taken that flow here, but when a GST revenue of a state is taken, of course it is destination based and across it will come. But a state with a lower MPC, even if you say it is suppose assume that it's a compartmentalized border closed state, a state with a lower MPC, its incremental demand for imports from other states and abroad, whatever, that also will have to be less. So empirically, how to solve this, I think we'll have further discussions and do that. But anyway, the comments have been enriching. We'll look into it. No?
I think we have, I think online people get preference, unfortunately. Professor Pinagi is there. Yes. Professor Pinagi? I'd like to have your
Thank
feedback.
you. Thank you, Professor Joseph. And I also wanted to thank the authors and the discussion for such a comprehensive discussion on the paper and the issues. I just had a couple of very basic kind of a question as far as the tax base is concerned. If I understood it correctly, I think the rationale for doing this exercise by the authors is to look at the impact of some kind of a change in the tax rate on tax base, and they are trying to argue that a fiscal expansion through a rate cut may not result in significant increase in revenue in high income states because their MPC is low. Well, that is certainly something which is worth exploring further, and I think it's important because in that case the implication on fiscal balance for states which are high income and states that are low income will be very different, and has implication for overall fiscal stability of individual states, especially those who are high income states, because they also get less transfers from the center. So that is an important, very important issue to be discussed and analyzed and evidence generated. However, I would like authors' comments. This is very preliminary. I was just, not that I have an answer, but purely from a policy perspective, if we are looking at So MPC, yes, it is low for high income states, and that's understandable. That's not something which is not counterintuitive. But even if it is low, what about the levels? So if we look at level of per capita consumption expenditure, and since we are talking about tax base as a base which is at current prices, so how that level translates into tax collection? And this tax collection, how do we measure? Should we measure it as a percentage of GDP, or should we measure it with respect to something else? And I also have this, not that I have an answer, but I also think that it will add a lot of, it will enrich the discussion if we actually get a clear understanding of tax effort of the states when we are talking about tax-induced fiscal expansion and consequent multipliers. So that is something I thought I would highlight. Second issue on that question, on this exhaustive and very comprehensive note of either discussion, I think the fiscal multiplier at the state level and the fiscal multiplier at the central level, or at the combined government level. I think combined government level is not less difficult, but doing fiscal multiplier analysis at the state level is quite problematic. So we have to be very careful what we should we do it, and if we do it, how it can best be done. That is one. Second, I also feel that there is this discussion. I don't know how valid it is in terms of providing insights. I think there is some discussion happening in India earlier that capital expenditure has a higher multiplier than the revenue expenditure. I really don't understand how do we do that. So if either Parameshwaran or the authors want to respond to that. The last point that I would say on the question of tax rate and tax base, and if we say that these are base expansion is going to lowering of rate without having an expansion of the base in terms of what we tax, the obvious result is a revenue loss, because we have not really broadened the base, and with exemptions increasing, in many cases GST also, there are a lot of some exemption, by meaning exempting the final consumption. So in such a scenario, how do we control for that when we talk about a tax cut and its impact on tax revenue? Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was nice intervention. And would you like to, yeah, please.
Thank you, Professor Pinaki.
These are all,
I think,
basically, these are all, they all
I think
follow
we have
us in some
traveled,
way or other. You're all. So
I think we have traveled several more steps than what we intended to do in the paper. Tax effort of a state, how distortionary exemptions are. I mean, yes, they have to be measured. But Professor Pinaki will take into account all this. But Professor Pinaki was asking a question on how the levels, I think, average propensity to consume at levels. I think they are higher for this higher income states also, in Kerala is higher. But what we are talking is the increment in consumption and the growth rate and the issues in it. I mean, he has pointed out problems in that. But what we were talking was not the level. Tax effort and the other tax structure, I think they call for a very deeply involved study in itself. Anyway, we will try to touch upon whatever is possible.
okay, please.
I'll first start responding for the discussion's comments. Thank you for reading this very carefully and also providing an alternative for it. But I would like to clarify a couple of things. One, when we started this work, or when we started, we'll explore the data. One of the reasons, primary reasons that kept on coming into our discussions is the question that we also started, that why is it that low income states are showing better tax performance while the high income states are showing a very poor tax performance? Yeah, And that is a puzzle that we have been trying to understand. And that especially becomes all the more interesting because when we contrast it with the per capita income. So that somehow suggests that it is not the level of economic development or per capita income that is a crucial explainer for tax performance, which otherwise has been considered as one of the crucial explainer when we are looking at tax performance. Number of cross-country studies and even studies in other countries have proved that. But here in Indian case, that's not happening that way. So that is when we also looked at consumption growth, because a series of meetings that we had with the GST commissioner, uh, that is also a puzzle because Kerala, despite all the expectations, is growing as one of the states with the lowest GST growth. Now, what could possibly explain this? So that is where we actually thought, could MPC be an explainer? So whether it is something to do with marginal propensity to consume, it is not just the level of income, but there are other issues that are coming into discussion. One is it is a MPC, but also, as director mentioned, the composition of consumption. So we looked at that as well, whether it is, but although we didn't finally put that into the paper, whether composition of consumption can also affect the revenues, but that is also not showing, and that consumption is also coming down for Kerala. Then we thought, let us see if MPC in the crude form of it can be an explainer of it. That is when we basically kind of testing waters, whether this argument that theoretically that has been established, whether that holds true for any empirical scrutiny. That is how, then comes the number of challenges. Then how do we estimate this at the state level? As Professor Ramkumar said, it is doable for a country as a whole. But and since our primary interest is to understand the state heterogeneity in taxation, then how do we do that? So one option, because it was there in the slides, that at state level, we don't get private final consumption expenditure. So we don't have that data. So what is the nearest approximation that we could do? That is when we landed up with CPHS data for all the demerits or all the criticism that it has received over the years. But still, we thought we will just try and see whether we could construct an MPC measure that resonates with the national trend. That was the first diagnostic check that we wanted to do. And when we did that, the MPC that we got out of CPHS data is coming very close to the MPC that we did. Very simple measure. I mean, it's not a simple delta C by delta Y. So that is coming almost closer to national picture. Then we thought, okay, there is some evidence. So it's not that CPHS data is throwing completely wild result. So we would have stopped the work there. Yeah. Then that said, relating it to household consumption to entire state's GST revenue also has problematic, because state's GST revenue does not come only from the household sector, right? That bias is there implicitly in that result, that we have to take note of it.
Yeah, right. Because
All total private final consumption expenditure. Yeah. So that is one aspect. Then we thought, since the trends are broadly following, and also the MPC estimates that we got are also in hypothesis, in synchronizing with the hypothesis that higher income states will have lower MPC. Now coming to what you suggested. So I don't clearly know, I think people can educate me on that, whether we can run that kind of a specification at the state level, assuming G to explain why.
RBI paper,
Yeah.
they estimated for state as well as India.
but G after all, what is the size of G you're talking about?
So essentially, what is the elasticity of the multiplier effect of state expenditure in state GDP?
Correct. Now that is where the okay. So when we are talking about it, you also made this thing that G is exogenously determined.
Yeah, that, otherwise you have to go for VAR models, all these things.
Yeah, but sir, can we assume that G is exogenously
Yeah,
determined?
I think the G I am talking about, that is an issue. Suppose you are focusing on government expenditure which directly influence consumption. That is the same as this tax cut.
True.
Salary,
How much it comes to?
yeah,
How much it may- yeah.
salary, and then what is social security.
Yeah.
Then, uh, then you, that I think that you can consider as exogenous, because suppose what is this exogenous? Suppose the economy is slowing down, government naturally increase the expenditure. That is counter-cyclical fiscal policies there. But suppose the economy is going up, we will not increase the salary. The
Correct.
economy is slowing down, we will not reduce the salary.
So then comes my second,
But salary also is fixed in a way using a different method.
so then comes my second point of contention, that then we cannot put GSDP or per capita GSDP as a dependent variable. Instead, it should be the consumption expenditure.
No, what is the idea? The idea is that you want to know the multiplier. When you're in, my starting point is this: you want to assess the effect of this tax cut on economic expansion. That is the objective. So what you need is multiplier, not the MPC. Because MPC is equal, 1 by 1 minus MPC is equal to multiplier only when the economy is closed, no tax is there. Otherwise, it is not multiplier. I think your focus is multiplier. Suppose you spend so much money, how much is the expansion in income? So that is the focus. So multiplier is not equal to, we cannot equate it that way to MPC. So now you estimate MPC, because why I'm suggesting this idea is that in one of your footnotes says that you cannot, you are quoting that you run a regression of income on investment, you will get the multiplier. But we don't have state level investment series, so we are not doing that. But you don't need investment series, either government expenditure or that is sufficient. That will give you the multiplier. What you need is the multiplier value.
So you suggest that we run a state level,
yeah, you
state-wise
you
time
get
series regressions?
state expenditure on this exogenous part. Then GSDP you get. GSDP is the domestic part. So then you get some estimate of multiplier. Similarly, you get for all India. Then combine these two. Because that will take care of these things.
Let us now,
No, one second. Can I just ask a question? Permission, you are talking about the Somnath Sharma Dev Prasad Rath paper, is it? The RBI paper that you just mentioned. Is that what you are mentioning?
I've not read any paper, only one paper that I cited here. But
no, because there is a 2024 paper in the Journal of Quantitative Economics where they Somnath Sharma, Dev Prasad Rath, and Samir Ranjan Behra, they do this, but what they call it, what you are saying, what they call is local fiscal multiplier. Now, that is a very different concept compared to that is how when government expenditure, as you take out from budget documents, when that increases, how much does consumptions increase? Now, that is a very, they're similar, of course, but it's slightly different as compared to what will be the impact of a tax cut on consumption. I think, see, a case can be made out for both, I agree. But what these papers call themselves are fiscal multipliers, which are essentially the old Keynesian type. You spend 1 rupee, how much does what is the impact on the economy? What we are talking about here is a tax cut, which is a more behavioral response at the household level. It's in that sense that a case can be made out to use consumption data like we have used. Now, what you're saying is correct. I, of course, appreciate the point you're making because there are certain assumptions that we are making in our model, including the economy being closed and so on, which will have an impact. You're absolutely right. But a similar set of assumptions will have to be also made on the approach that you are suggesting. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not. Maybe both of us are right. Maybe both of us are wrong. It's both approaches are right and both approaches have their problems. So
one thing is that the judgment of I'm not saying that this approach is not Good. What I am saying is that if this is the objective, this kind of issues are there. Then coming to the issue of, I think Ramkumar, one issue is that you are saying that you are focused, there is a tax cut. And in my equation, there is a T is also there. You can also manipulate that. T is reduces, your multiplier will increase. But you in a macroeconomic framework, what you can do is that either see it as an implicit transfer to the public, or you say that there is an increase in the disposable income of the people by reducing T. So we both are equivalent. Now coming to the issues that if you, given your objective of assessing the expansion in income due to this thing, that one way is to take it is in a macroeconomic way. Another, this consumers' behavior, I think, is slightly microeconomic approach. That is the central government response. That is, as price decreases, your income, your demand will increase, but that will not. That framework may not be useful for addressing the kind of questions you are raising. So that is why I thought that this may be the one way to proceed.
Okay, I think I cannot be patient. I wanted to listen from Mr. Ren. Does it make any sense at all these talks? Hi, Mr. Abraham.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Right.
the opportunity. First of all, I must congratulate the whole team and the discussants, especially the team considering the severe restrictions on availability of data in the realm of GST. One must not forget that. While the study is fantastic, it has actually examined the primary assumption with which the group of ministers on revenue has set. That is the the headline statement that has been examined here, whether a reduction in rate cuts, would result in a concomitant increase in consumption, which would result in, being the whole effort being revenue neutral or at least not so much revenue negative. Now, the only one thing which I was just wondering, and I would like to put this question to the authors, is that in the course of your research, if you have at some point come across how this rate cuts and how the actual rates that have been cut. Now, if you examine the rate cuts that have come in recently, it is the 28% slab that has been removed rather than say the 5% or the 12%. Of course, there are a few changes here and there, but primarily one of the efforts was to annihilate the 28% slab and bring it into a 3-rate structure. Now, the 28% slab, as all of us know, is something, these are not common man's consumption items. These are items that are considered mostly in the luxury bracket of consumption. Would that have an impact on your study, especially because considering that only 28% items have mostly been cut? Have you examined that? I'm just probably I'm going beyond the scope of the paper, but if you have seen it, if you have any comments on it, would be nice to hear that.
Very, very interesting question. In fact, I was sitting here and I was actually thinking, who will bridge this microeconomist and macroeconomist? I remember a long time back. The thing is that their reflections are very. I remember a long time back when Arun Ghosh wrote a review on my book. The opening paragraph was, in this country, I'm actually reading through here. There's a disparate groups of teachers of economics. One believes in micro theory, other believes in macro theory. So these people are macro. The macro is very important. But now you are actually asking questions are also very important. I wish these kinds of questions are actually taken to the economics classrooms of postgraduates here. And it's a wonderful. I mean, what is for me when I studied MPC 1 minus MPC blah 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 mucked up, completely mucked up. MPC what is multiplier mucked up. Now we never knew that these are really these discussion should be, and again to the micro level. I wish these kind of discourses are taken to the. And this is not a concluding remark. So I think I'm your question is very relevant. I felt very much close to you. So I think they will be having a response, and we'll open it to the floor here. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yeah. Ramalingam, you will be the final word.
No. See, I have a couple of questions. I mean, Kiran, do you have a time to discuss with the non-economic students here?
Sir, yes.
Yes. So I have a couple of doubts because most of your talks, my discussions, I am not, I cannot able to understand. See, my basic question is, I'm asking a small question, Kiran, because I cannot ask R. Mohan and Ramakumar. They are intellectually giant. I guess Kiran is my. So, Kiran, I want to ask a small question. For example, I'm coming to your point after that. If I purchase, if 1,000 televisions are produced in Tamil Nadu, whether that amount will come in the GDP of Tamil Nadu? Yes or no? Hello? Hello?
Yes, it will come in Tamil.
Yes. So the same 1,000 TVs are being sold to interstate to Kerala. Whether that will come in the Kerala GDP?
No, sir.
That part
Yes
of
or no? Yeah, I want to ask. Yeah. See, this is you just explain to the non-economics person because
You are right on.
yes,
It will
yes
not.
or no?
It will not come to Kerala's GSDP.
Yes. So my humble suggestion is that first of all, taking tax GDP ratio from the GST angle will be a wrong conclusion because most of the goods are coming from the Kerala, is sold in Kerala, which is not included in the Kerala GDP. And most of the goods sold from Tamil Nadu to Kerala, it will be included in the Tamil Nadu GDP. Am I correct or not? You please correct me. This
You're
is my
right.
non-economics person's question.
You're right. You're right. You please go
You are
ahead.
right. So people connecting GST with a lot of GDPs and coming to a conclusion, especially from the Kerala point of view or from the person Kerala or any state in Kerala, will come to a wrong conclusions. This is my suggestion. You think about it. If it is think about it. Second one, household consumption. Sorry, household debt in Kerala seems to be the highest in India. Maybe double the average in India. Am I right or not, Kiranji? I'm asking to Kiran.
You're right. You're right. Fourth
Yeah.
position.
No, you are putting me everything right or is it right or not? So if people in Kerala purchase, I mean, borrowing for not for saving, they are borrowing for the purpose of spending.
Sir, you are substantially correct. It's fourth position. Yeah.
Yeah, both were. So this type of analysis, whether will we conclude with a saying that I may say that I can only flag it now. That is thinking about GDP with what we call it as propensity to consume or multiplier effect. First of all, I want to know multiplier effect and marginal propensity to consume are one and the same. That is also an issue. What I understood multiplier effect is that a small amount of spending making a multiple effect of income and impact in the economic activity. Marginal propensity is a change in the consumption and change in the income is something. Whether these are two other same or not is something to be discussed. No, today morning, coincidentally, I got a Institute of Chartered Accountant from Nidhi Ayog. Professor P.S. Kuniga has come here and they called me for a discussion. They have a consultative group on tax policy here. They came for it in Trivandrum for discussion with the Institute of Chartered Accountant people. They are only, government of India is only concerned about what they are, I'm talking about Nidhi Ayog. They are only concerned about what we call it as, only they are concerned about the foreign direct investment. For the purpose of foreign direct investments, they are not ready to change the tax rates for state to state. So uniform taxation is their main agenda, national level agenda. So you may say that you may have an idea of state bargaining, lower rate and upper rate and SGST one rate and CGST one rate. I have discussed them. They have no such agenda. So this type of analysis, whether it will be useful for Kerala, I'm maybe going beyond the paper. Your paper is excellent because is something to be discussed. Just I flagged, you need not want to answer. That's all. Thank you.
Good. I think, I think regarding the FDI equal taxation and all interstate competition, and the competition actually happens not necessarily through taxation, through non-tax means. That's a different story. I think, yeah, we can discuss. But anyway, yeah, so slightly, yeah, right.
Sir, I will clarify only couple of points. You are right, and we also agree with you on this point that GDP may not be a good denominator to measure the GST tax support.
Yes.
Agreed upon it. That is why we are not using GDP as a denominator in this work. We are instead looking at household income, and given that household income, how much or change in the household income, how much consumption changes. Yeah, yes, sir. And
Why can't you take household debt? It is more good or not?
that is,
Because in
sir, yeah. So the point again, you're right in saying that why you're taking only income, why can't you take debt component? Sir, it's a
yes.
stock part. I mean, you are taking debt, it will have. Yeah.
Can
So-
take the borrowing, your income, expenditure, and this is very complicated thing.
Yeah, no. It is a question from a non-economics person. Who is
You take, the better option will be to arrive at a proxy for a permanent income. Which we were not able to do. Actually, if you can proxy permanent income, what Dr. Ramalingam said also will be factored in.
So ideally, we could have, we could.
Point is, what Raman point, when you are talking about
Mike,
income,
Mike.
when you are talking only income, in a context wherein substantial borrowing is happening from the bank, from the household level, and that in turn is
Yeah, exactly.
used by that, to what extent we take into account, that is the point we have to think about.
So we have not-
think about
People are borrowing not for saving, only for consumption.
everything under the sun.
We have not taken it for a specific purpose.
Kavit will take
No,
off.
sir, we have not taken it for a specific purpose. Okay, now borrowing for what needs? We need that classification, right? Borrowing for investment needs or conversion. Now, what is, we have to take what is the annual borrowing, how much repaid, then you will get, no? So otherwise we cannot really track it.
Point to be acknowledged.
Yes.
That is the point. When you're talking about, see,
No problem.
we need to deviate from the conventional textbookical way of multiplier and consumption when we deal with real world. You rightly said about the Freeman's permanent income. But other things I don't want to say that you should do it, but then you should take caveats.
Sir, that's what I'm
Take
trying
caveat.
to clarify, that we have actually thought about it, but we didn't do it purposefully because that incorporation could lead to a further bias. That's all.
Yeah.
As such, income has its own biases. The moment we plug in debt, we have to be able to then, we have to take that repayment into consideration. Then only we'll have that current borrowing, so that will be added to income. Then you can look at
the bank here and there's a debt here, invest in a house in Bombay. I mean, all sorts of problems.
This is the economics. This is the economics. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm sure students may have more clarificatory questions and more. Very interesting. Yeah. Anybody from the online would have I missed any important people from the? Everybody is important. Okay.
Thank you for the really interesting discussion that you have initiated. Compliments to all the authors. And also special thanks to Parmeshwaran sir for this exhaustive discussion, which enlightened us a lot.
More than the authors, in fact.
Yeah.
No. It is little too much. It will be too much. I withdrawn that statement. Tell a story about it a little bit later. I'll tell you a story about it a bit later. Okay. Yeah, please.
This is just a basic clarificatory things only. So when you talk about the marginal propensity to consume, so the factors influencing marginal propensity to consume is different, right? So how do you take those heterogeneities? Like for example, the demographic pattern of the state, demographic pattern of the state, and also the immigration pattern. Like Kerala is having the highest number of immigrants. So in that particular case, how this particular measure will fit into this particular framework. And then the second part is about your tax base is related to your revenue mobilization, right? So base related to determining factor of revenue mobilization. So that tax base is particularly depending upon the economic structure, basically whether you are a service driven or manufacturing driven, and also the subsector categorization. Even if it's a service driven economy, like what are the characterization of your service sector? So in that case, the tax rate cuts how it is related to the revenue mobilization part.
Two quick points. See, what you are talking about MPC is right, but our objective here is not to explain what are the determinants of MPC. So that we are keeping it constant. And so the point that you're talking about, immigration or interstate, actually looking at consumption from the household level takes care of it, because consumption is happening locally. That is what you're capturing through CPHS, right? So if suppose one of the presentations Professor Ramkumar made in previous gift conference on Kerala economy was that one of the potential reasons, or could be a main reason, for Kerala not having a high tax GDP ratio compared to its per capita income could also be because of its a lot of internal migration within the state, and much of it goes back to the destination states as remittances. Now, when you look at the consumption originating state, when you look at consumption expenditure, that is taken care of. So that particular part is actually better addressed if you see consumption expenditure. Correct. That is another part. And the second answer to your question is, yes, tax base determines not just the level of per capita income, also about the structure of the economy, which includes the economic structure and also the population structure. So that could definitely be a point when we are going ahead and trying to put that into a regression framework, testing, controlling for all other factors. Could MPC still be a right? Could MPC still be a major explainer?
Ramkumar or anyone would like to, yeah, please, yeah.
I'll just come back to this point about permanent income. I mean, I think there is agreement on the fact that permanent income is the most appropriate denominator to take, and the problems of GSTP are well known, and that is why Kiran explained that the consumption expenditure was the denominator that we actually chose. If you actually take a permanent income at the state level, it should be the addition of, let's say the annuity value of the lifetime wealth of an individual plus the long-term expected income or labor income of people. That should be the typical way in which we should calculate permanent income. But permanent income is not available in those days. So the idea is to look for the closest practical equivalent of what would be the permanent income at the state level. Now, that would be the long-run household consumption expenditure. And most of the studies, if you see, textbooks, if you see, that would be the closest equivalent you can have, given the data problems that we have at the state level. The closest equivalent to the permanent income is the long-run household consumption expenditure. Now, this this is what we have chosen. So, the problems of data availability constrain us from using a permanent income at the state level. But what we have done is to use the closest equivalent to that. That is, Kiran explained it very well, but I just thought I will chip in with one additional sentence here. And there are other studies which have argued that like we take a 3-year moving average of GSDP or GDP. Suppose we take a 10-year moving average of GSDP, that can also be closer to the permanent income. But I don't think we need to get into that. That's a very more, and that will not be useful for the purpose that we have here. But there are other studies which do that for other purposes. So just thought I'll place that on the table. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I think if there are no Further questions, we have 2 more minutes. Normally, the seminar should conclude only by 5 o'clock. You would like to say anything? Kindly don't complain later.
No. I only.
But from the students, any issues? Completely resolved? It's all what you studied in your macro? Anyway, I think, yeah, if you want to.
Comments after listening, Kiran, and one thing my suggestion or is it's better not to try to address many problems in one paper. GST issues, whether GST, what is happening to Kerala. Yeah, that is, if your objective is to assess the current GST reductions on economic expansion, focus on that. And if you try to address many problems in one paper, then get distracted.
How taxes are affected by the margin growth in taxation and margin growth. That's the central question.
This way, situating or motivating it would be very contemporary. You may be immediately called to Delhi.
That's not it. But current GST, I have to wait for some more time to have its.
Yeah, go back.
I just want to offer one clarification. When you are saying that tax cuts are implicit transfers, that is perfectly right when the transmission is perfect. In the sense, whatever is the tax cut that gets reflected in changes in MRP and consumer is taking advantage of that tax cut. So that is an implicit transfer.
Yeah.
Right.
Direct taxes, what is
Yes.
Yeah, one way to see is this. You have a tax cut that reduces the price. Your price is lower now, so your real income is higher.
Correct, sir.
That is also one way to see. But then suppose it is not transmitted, then it has no effect.
That's what, sir. So
lower than this. It has an effect because his income is large.
but more often, or the empirical literature on the transmission, it is not always one, especially in indirect taxes. Yeah, in the class also I showed there are a lot of. Yes, sir. So there it is a function of multiple channels, but sometimes.
Yeah, that kind of complications are there where you have to assume what can be the actual transmission, some assumption.
Right. Yes.
Suppose the government says that lost revenue is 1,000 crores. Actual transmit what the households getting maybe 500 crores. That is why you need some scenario will help you to.
Okay, I think now it is 5 o'clock. We should conclude. I am not going to make any conclusion except for the fact that my real feeling is that this is a wonderful seminar, very brief presentation. Sometimes presentations go on and on and on. There's no time. I think Mohan made so nicely. In 20 minutes time, he provoked. And the discussion was so enriching. And I am sure the discussant did a lot of hard work. I remember, there's 1 minute for one story for me. When you become professor, you keep on talking, I'm a professor, I was in JNU at that time. So I was invited for a discussion of a paper in IIM Ahmedabad of none other than Ashok Desai. That night I didn't sleep. I went to IIM Ahmedabad guest house, had a couple of coffee, I could not get sleep. And he made some 10 minutes, 20 minutes presentation. I went on. But anyway, you did a very excellent hard work. So I remember, I just reminded me of my discussion of Ashok Desai's paper. So you did such a hard work and very committed to your profession. And all others, I'm very happy that Pinagi could join. And Amalinkams, always the interventions are very welcome. And all the three others, we are very happy for providing us with a sumptuous, refreshing, and have I left anyone? Oh, Ren, of course. Yeah. And I note the presence of Mr. Abhilash. Abhilash, why are you keeping quiet? I forgot to ask you. Abhilash? Hello? Yeah, Abhilash left. I forgot to ask him, in fact. Yeah. So I think I'm very happy that, we have a wonderful discussion. Thank all of you for that. And it is a wonderful, I think at 5 p.m., we are much, much better off than what we were at 3:30. Thank you, all of you.